mano. Tú quieres hacerlo, Yana.
They're calling you out. All right, so who's gonna pray? Are we gonna pull sticks? Yeah, she's putting up Benny real quick.
Where's Eric E?
Eric's back there. He's over there.
I mean Eric M. That's what I meant to ask.
Still-
This is the second time
He's
Still in Mexico.
studying. Oh no, he's still.
Yeah, he's still in Mexico. He'll be back pretty soon.
I'm sorry, Eric. This is the second time I do this.
Happens.
Okay, Eric E, you're gonna pray.
You got a microphone? Oh, okay, go for it. Okay, my bad.
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for bringing us safely to your praise player. And I ask that you help us study your word and that you help us understand it. And I also thank you for letting us have a good practice. And I pray for the food that we're going to eat later on. And I also pray that you take us back home safely in your holy name. Amen.
Good job. Yeah, very solid.
I don't know, I felt it. I felt every inch of it, especially the full part.
Yeah.
It's counted.
All right, so last week, what did we do? What was it? What's that? Part 2? Yeah, obviously because there's part 3 behind us. Yeah, so part 2. So what was part 2?
He got out of jail.
He got out of jail?
And he was like,
Wait, where's the microphone? Where are the microphones?
he was like, you're the best.
He was
But how
supposed
did-
Became governor.
No.
Well, hold on.
And then you said it, like the main idea of.
He interpreted the dream.
Okay. But how did he get to the interpretation of the dream? How did he get out of jail?
They remembered him.
No, before then, because
They remembered
remember,
him.
he couldn't interpret dream and get out of jail. He had to interpret somebody else's dream.
And then Pharaoh
The
saw that,
Pharaoh?
and then he
Yeah.
asked him.
He didn't see that. Somebody else told him about it.
Yeah. He found out about that.
Yes.
And then he had a dream in it.
Yep. So he had the dream, right? So they had to call on somebody. And everybody said, hey, we know one guy. His name's Joseph. He's over there. Remember him? He was actually your servant before. Came back, and then, obviously Pharaoh told him, and right away he said,
You're the best after me.
exactly right. Yeah, after me. Yeah, pretty much. And so now we're getting to part 3, right? Which is the last part of actually chapter 41. So we said before, he interpreted the dream. He's now pretty much second in charge. And let's go into reading the verse because we don't have that much time we did before. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into this one. Okay, so who's going to read this one? Sticks? Sticks. Go for it. No? She's got it.
Okay. So Pharaoh said to Joseph, I hereby
That's not bad.
put you in charge of the whole land of Egypt. Then Pharaoh took his
Signet?
signet ring from his finger and put it on Joseph's finger.
Mhm.
He dressed him with robes of fine
Linen?
linen and put a gold chain around his neck. He had him ride in
Chariot?
a chariot
Uh-huh.
as as his second
Yeah.
as his second in command, and people shouted before him, make way. Thus he put make a way. Thus he put him in charge of the whole land of Egypt.
Okay. So, pretty much looking at that, right, let's get to some pretty much keynotes here. So why is Joseph in charge? We talked about it before. Because he what? Interpreted the dream, right?
But what were the characteristics that we talked about last week? Characteristics.
Wisdom and knowledge.
And we discussed the differences.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then Eric gave his wonderful explanation. Good job, Eric. Okay, so he's in charge. Okay, now let's go to the next thing, right? So it's pretty much saying he was able to interpret Pharaoh's dream, right? Also that, right? So we talked about that. Okay, now let's think next thing. What does a signet ring represent?
It's official.
It's what?
Official and authentic. Done here.
Official and authentic.
authority.
Okay, but what is that? To
Power.
who?
Uh,
It gives Joseph power.
Microphone.
It gives Joseph authority and power
To who?
to the land of Egypt.
Okay, there you go. So that's what I'm saying. Because I mean, he ring is like, oh, it's a nice ring, but I mean, what does it matter to him, right? So obviously, it gives some kind of pretty much power, right? To say, hey, because somebody has this, therefore that's what's going on. So pretty much that's what I had, right? Signature, that's a seal to show authority. You ever watch like old movies where they used to have like back in the day they'll put a seal and they'll put like wax on it and seal it and they'll say, oh, we know this is true because it came from this person. That's their seal. That's their family. That's where you kind of go from that, right? It's a way to represent the family's lineage to say it's true. Only they have that authority with that type of material. What's that?
No, I'm giving you an example from a series.
Oh, so it's, like I said, seal in old times, right? So, okay, so that's pretty much it, right, on that one. So sticks, okay. Who's gonna read?
it's gonna be Danny. Just watch out.
You got it.
Then Pharaoh said to him, I am Pharaoh, but without your word no one will lift hand or foot in all Egypt.
Mhm.
Pharaoh gave Joseph the name of Zaphenath.
It's alright. Yeah, you just sound it out. Don't worry.
And gave him Asenath, daughter of Potiphar, priest of On, to be his wife. And Joseph went through the land of Egypt.
Okay. So there's a lot of stuff here, even though it looks like it looks like there's like just two sentences, no big deal, but there's a lot in here, right? So let's go cover pretty much those things in there, right? So keynote. So why did he change Joseph's name to pretty much an Egyptian name?
So he could be recognized as he is like in a high
It
place.
just takes it in, yes.
He's the kid that just takes the
Yeah, Yeah. So what were you saying again?
So he could be known
So he can be known
as he has like a high place.
as a high place?
Like he is in a high.
Yeah.
He has a high place, like a royalty, basically.
Yes and no.
Oh,
What
okay.
happened? Go ahead.
I would
Yeah, go for it.
educated guess.
Yeah. Oh, I was like.
I'm thinking, I don't know, maybe to like kind of like to make no difference apart from like he's Hebrew and we're Egyptians and we want to make you not like exactly like us, like force you to be like us, but we want to make you one of us,
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, that's literally what I was pretty much saying. That whole sentence that we were reading, all that is pretty much tied together into one thing, which is how do you find a way to bring them into pretty much your own lineage and have people respect that person, right? So like same thing happened with Daniel, right? They changed all their names, right? And Daniel, it was more to pretty much kind of like, it was more of a, you're going to be part of us. You get to forget your old name. You're going to be part of us. But in this one, it's more to have them integrate with everybody else, right? To show that respect still, right? So if we look at that, so pretty much, and then also the meaning of the name pretty much is God speak and he lives. So it's not like you look last time with Daniel, they pretty much gave him all different names, and there was names for their gods. But this one, he's actually trying to like respect him and say, hey, because you interpreted my dream, I'm going to give you a name that reflects that, right? So pretty much that God lives through him, right? Does that make sense to you guys so far? Okay. So now the next thing. Who are the priests of On? What? They're priests? They're priests of On. Okay.
Wait, for real?
Mm-hmm.
Like you're asking like.
Like, who are they? Because obviously, they could just say, "Oh, well, she got married to this person. Like, who cares?" But obviously, they're putting something related. They're related to Pharaoh.
No, kind of see it like, for example, our priest or like our pastor, right? Like,
What
Just like spitting things out.
what kind of leader? The kitchen leader, the religious leader, like
If you guys don't know, you guys will say, "We don't know."
Don't know we.
Don't know we. Good job. So they lead the worship for the Egyptian sun god. So pretty much, when you go back and think about like, when Pharaoh's gonna give him a wife, is he going to give him like the lowest of the low people to say, I'm going to give you whatever? Go ahead. What say, Matthew?
A high class of wife.
Mike.
A high class of what?
A high class.
Yeah.
You got it. You got it. What?
No, you said it though.
Yeah, you had it right there. So you pretty much said,
A high class of a wife.
yeah, a high class of. Okay, yeah, exactly. So when we think about that, right? So we're saying he's not just giving him whoever. He's also trying to say, I'm going to give you the top person we have to pretty much show you my gratitude, right? But, huh? Yeah, reward. Yeah, you can say that. But does that is that rewarding for her though?
No, for him.
For him, that's rewarding. But for her, what does it look like? Yeah, just giving away, like kind of like you're giving me to a Hebrew, like what that doesn't, you know what I mean? So for her, it probably isn't the best, but he's trying to show faith within his own people, right? As far as to say, hey, I'm giving you to Mary so that way everybody can start seeing that this is actually a very trustful relationship with Joseph, right? But yeah, either way, so it's pretty much said that these people are supposed to be the most intelligent people as far as in the Egyptian area. So you would say like priest in as far as in the faith of Christianity. Same thing, or in Judaism back then, it's same thing, right? They're supposed to be the most knowledgeable, so therefore we're going to give you somebody good. And so they also talk about somebody else, which is, you're saying, who is reading that one? You are, yeah. So who is that? They have, huh? Potiphar? Yeah. Okay, so yeah. Yeah, it's the same name though. So it's wordplay on that one. It's the same name, it just, they gave it two different titles. One was when it gets the bull's fat and all this stuff, and the other one is just pretty much like, he kind of created sin and had to find a way to go back. So it's the same person. That's all I'm trying to say. So we're seeing that person again, and he's giving his daughter away to Joseph. Does that make sense so far? Okay, just making sure that, I mean, these stories are going to get all connected eventually, right? So most intelligent people, we kind of talked about that earlier. And then why did Pharaoh marry Joseph? We kind of talked about a little bit that as well.
Danny's thinking of
Pharaoh married Joseph.
Yeah, why did he marry him? Why did he marry him?
No, if
Huh?
somebody, I know, but if somebody were to read that and they didn't know.
Yeah. Yeah, remember, I barely had enough time to put this together, okay?
You're saying, why did he chose to like?
Yeah, like why would he like,
choose to marry Joseph.
like real quick?
To choose for him to get married, like.
Yeah. Like why would he do it so fast like that? Like why would he wait and say?
I declare you what husband you want.
Yeah, so why would he do that? Like why would, like, you know, before we saw with who was it? We just read about it earlier as far as in chapter 37, where it was pretty much they kept on saying, oh man, my brain's getting stuck right now. But it was pretty much about like how if you do this and I'll let you marry this person. Oh no, sorry, that wasn't 37. That was yeah, Jacob, right? So then he kept on saying like, if you marry Leah, if you marry this one, then eventually I'll give you Rachel, blah blah blah.
For like the 7 years thing.
Yeah. But in this one, it's not like he's saying, oh, if you help me with this famine, then I'm gonna give you something. No, he's already pretty much he's already like saying, yeah, like I'm helping you in this. Like you're helping me out, I'm right away giving you these rewards right away, right? So I just thought that was interesting as far as that, like real quick, because he was pretty much showing him, like we're both in this together.
Pharaoh saw something special in Joseph.
Right. So also, like I said before, in this one, it's the marriage is cemented Joseph's place in Egyptian society, and it removed all doubts into the people as far as in Egypt to say Pharaoh approved of him, right? To say, yes, he is one of us. We changed his name. Well, we gave him a name, gave him the ring. He's in a chariot. He's doing all these things. He's part of us, right? So that's another thing. Okay, next one. Who's ready to read? Sticks. Are you gonna?
Okay. Oh, it's me. Okay. Joseph was 30 years old when he entered the service of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. And Joseph went out from Pharaoh's presence and traveled throughout Egypt. During the 7 years of abundance, the land produced plentifully. Joseph collected all the food produced in those 7 years of abundance in Egypt and stored it in the cities. In each city, he put the food grown in the fields surrounding it. Joseph stored up huge quantities of grain like the sand of the sea. It was so much that he stopped keeping records because it was beyond measure.
So, in this one, let's go to the next part, right? So, if you're, I mean, we're going to get to that picture in a minute, so give me a second. But why did the storyteller let us know Joseph's age? Say what, sorry?
It might be important in the future.
Sure. Or even right now. So,
It's like an important date for him. Like,
it's an important thing for him?
yeah, like,
What do you mean by that?
like it's something in life. Like,
Something in life?
yeah, it's
Age
an
in his
age
life?
in his life where he achieved something.
Yeah.
It marks the 7 years.
Sorry?
It marks the 7 years.
I can't hear you.
It marked the 7 years.
It marked the 7 years? What do you mean by 7 years?
Like the next ones are gonna come.
Oh, to say like, oh, it started now?
Yeah.
Okay, so when it's over, you know that he's this old or whatever. Okay, gotcha. Okay, sure. But also, it's telling us how long he's been pretty much a captive for, right? When was he? So that's pretty much like it's the next thing, right? So how long has it been since Joseph was sold into slavery to the Egyptians? How old was he when he got sold? 16? No, close.
13.
What?
18.
No, no.
17.
17.
Called it.
Yeah. So he was 17 when he got sold to the Egyptians, right? So let's go to that one, right? And now he's 30. How?
13 years.
13 years, exactly. So he's been 13 years in slavery as far as, and now he's kind of like, instead of being, he went from being a slave to a servant to going to jail, and now he's second in command. In those 13 years, that's pretty crazy, right? That's a wild story for those 13 years. And in those 13 years, he's been completely faithful to God, right? Right? So that's one thing. So now, from the dreams that he interpreted for Pharaoh, what's happening so far?
The events are happening.
The what, sorry?
The events.
The events? Okay, what events are those?
The crop.
The crops?
Crops are dying.
Prosperity.
Prosperity? Yep, prosperity. That's the main one right there. Yep. So it's have the abundance is what we were talking about right last time. So you have the 7 year of abundance, right? And like I said before, without the dream, as far as to interpret what was actually going on, they could have been like, oh, we're having a great time. And then guess what? The next 7 years, everybody would have really had a tough time to actually get through it, right? So now the next thing. Okay, so the image, right, of those 7 years, what was it? Huh? No. In the dream, what was happening? Oh, I can't really hear the microphone. Sorry. Who's got the microphone?
It was the good head of grains and then the good cows.
Yeah. So we have the fat cows, right? That's what we were talking about last time, right?
They were saying the ugly cow.
Yeah, the ugly cows. They gave so many different like pictures of it. Yeah, remember he gave them 2 different times, right? One was a fat cow, one was an ugly cow, and the other one was like some other things as far as we have 2 separate times when he told the story. Yep. Okay, so this is one thing that kind of was like, I went back and I was like, oh man, every time you watch like a TV show or a movie or whatever, when it comes to the silos and everything as far as where they store the grain, you always think of it as like one spot, everybody comes to that one spot and they go grab all this grain, right? But in reality, they store the food where? There?
Some bags.
Uh-huh. Everywhere? Everywhere? But what was the thing they said? They didn't say everywhere.
Around the city.
Around the city. So multiple cities have places where you can go get food. Exactly. So it's not just like one area where they're saying, you got to come here to get food. He actually was very logistical as far as how we actually planned all the food, right? So it'd be too much to move it around. And also, the other thing too was pretty much multiple cities. We talked about it there. And then, and we talked about pretty much how they store it, was actually the silos. So in the picture right here, you have 2 different silos. Yeah, so you have a silo there and a silo right, left and right, right? And so all it is just a big container that just holds things, right? You ever see sometimes, I'm not sure if you guys drive out in the country area, they'll have these huge looking like big metal containers. And those are the grain, yeah. Yeah, corn, they'll have all that stuff in there pretty much, yeah. So, and you gotta remember they have to find a way to seal everything too. They have to seal it somehow, it doesn't get out. They have to make sure pests don't get in there, so that way it doesn't like mess it up and cause some kind of fungus or anything like that. So I mean, they did a really good job in a short period of time to get that food ready. So the other thing I was gonna say, if you go back, was city field surrounding it, activity. The records, right? So at the very end it says that he was going to keep records of what he had out there available. So what is good about keeping records?
It's like,
If somebody steals? Yes and no. Even before the stealing, let's just say you have some. What is it worth, though, as far as Eric? What? Oh, give me a second. Sorry.
It'll be mainly to measure like how much was given away and how much is left.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, it's a good way to indicate what's going on.
to keep balance.
Yeah, keep balance.
Keep track of stock.
But also, with like, think about what we're reading right now. If there is no record keeping of the Bible, then you have no idea what's going on, right? You have no idea what's going on, so everything's gonna be scattered, and then exactly. So if you have a time, you can kind of tell what's going on. If you're keeping track of the inventory, as far as when it comes to pretty much like the grain that they're pretty much holding back, then what's happening is that you can tell how long can you keep this food for. Are you able to actually withstand that many people? Because you're going to figure out, well, this many people live in Egypt. Let's calculate that. How many times we're going to eat? We need this much to go from there. And eventually, they passed that limit. Is what they're trying to get at. Is they passed the limit of what they were expecting to pretty much have in the silos. It just got to a point where they just had too much. So it was good. That's pretty much what I'm trying to get back to. Is it was good that they found a way to say that they got more than what they actually needed. The abundance was actually great, right? So let's go back to the next one. And we're going to get to who's going to read the next. So who's next on the reading list?
Who's Eric M? Oh, Matthew wants to read. Okay.
Yeah. Go for it.
I won.
You got the microphone? Okay, cool.
Yeah. Before the years of
Famine?
famine came, two sons were born to Joseph by Aseneth,
Yep.
daughter of
Mm-hmm.
Era,
Yep.
priest on the fifth on.
Priest of On. There you go.
On.
Now you got verse 51. You're good.
I was about to say 51. Joseph named the firstborn Masahet
Yep.
and said, "It's because God has made me forget all my trouble
Yep.
and all my father household." The second son named.
How do you say that name?
The second
Ephraim,
name
yeah.
he named Aim or Ephraim,
Yep.
and said, "It's because God has made me faithful in the land of my suffering."
Yep. So, if you go to that, right, like we said earlier, in the 13 years so far that he's been kind of held captive, held in that area, right, as far as in Egypt, he hasn't forgotten about God, right? And obviously God hasn't forgotten about him. That the great plan, right, for him was actually to save Egypt and all of his people. But in that time frame, you can always say, "Oh, thanks God for doing this," and that's it. But he named his kids after something to remember who he's still serving as far as God, right? So, and to me, that's actually pretty cool, because if you actually, you're going to have that every day of that remembrance every single time. Every time you call yours out for your son or whatever, it's always going to be something that's going to say, yes, I remember I'm suffering, but you're giving me this as far as, what's called, you've helped me through this whole problem, right? So he says he helped him to his trouble, and it also said his father's household. So he's saying pretty much that he's forgiving everybody that's, as far as bad that happened to him with his first son, and he's forgiven his brothers, is what they're saying right there, right? His father. And then the second one is saying, even though it happened to me in the first part, now the second part of my life, you're making me very fruitful here. You're giving me a wife. You're giving me these kids. Even though I'm suffering in this land, I'm still going to be pretty much what's called in your pretty much what do you call it? In your hands as far as with God. So I just want to point that out. There wasn't really too much there besides the names, which I thought was pretty cool. Okay, so next one. Who's going to read? It's the last, or actually, yeah, I think last part. Matthew? Go for it. Yeah, go for it.
Or sticks.
Huh?
Let me read anyway.
Go for it.
The 7 years of abundance in Egypt came to an end, and the 7 years of famine began. Just as Joseph has said, there was famine in all the other lands, but in the whole land of Egypt there was food. When all Egypt began to feel the famine, the people cried to Pharaoh for food. Then Pharaoh told all the Egyptians, "Go to Joseph and do what he tells you."
Yeah. So if we look at the notes right here, we're seeing the difference now as far as with imagery. The what? Ugly cows. Yes. Skinny cows now devouring the fat cows, right? That's what we were talking about last time. Okay, now the next part. Pharaoh could have dismissed Joseph, right, from his title after filling the silos with grain, but he still kept him around. Why? Because he was still what? He was still wise? Okay. What else? Because, I mean, yeah.
He is wise.
Yeah, because remember, what did Pharaoh give Joseph as far as the first thing? He talked about the name. And what was that name? But what was... Yeah. Oops. Yeah, so pretty much that lives through God. So pretty much, Pharaoh sees that Joseph is more valuable than just say, you fix this one thing. He's pretty much saying, like, we're going to keep together with this partnership, and you're going to keep around me because I never know if I'm going to need you again, but you're helping us out with the people, so might as well keep you around forever. He's not just abusing him and letting him go. So I think that was pretty cool, that saying that even after the 7 years and the 7 years to come, he's still there, right? So last part to actually read, and we'll go from there. Okay, let's go, Matthew. He got you first anyways.
When the famine has spread all over the whole country, Joseph opened all of the storehouses and sold the grain to the Egyptians. For the famine was severe droughts. Egypt. And all the world became to Egypt to buy grain from Joseph because the famine was severe everywhere.
Yeah. So remember we talked about it before. We kind of talked about it last week at the very end, which was it wasn't just in one area. It was all of Egypt, and we talked about pretty much how one area is what's causing a lot of the issues, right? But let's kind of talk about that. So we said, how important was it as far as the Nile River, right? We have a drought because there's no water, right? And so the main source for them was actually the Nile. So if it's actually dried up, then what do they have to eat or anything? They literally have nothing, right? So it's very important how that worked out. So my biggest question out here, I was looking at it and I was like, why did Pharaoh tell Joseph to sell grain instead of just giving it away? To make profit? Keep the riches? Okay, go ahead. It'll be gone really fast if they just gave it away? Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, I mean, both of you guys, the way you guys are saying it, yeah, it makes sense. Okay, so then let's get to the next part. What happened if they didn't have the money to buy the grain? Trades? Yep. What would they trade for? Yeah, so animals, and if they had no money, they would have to get rid of their land. And so what would happen there, right? So let's get to the next part. This would eventually help the country store land throughout the years following. So if they're doing all this, they're going to end up getting into a pact eventually with Pharaoh. And they're going to say, hey, you have to give us at least a fifth of your harvest every year so we can store it. So eventually if something like this happens again, you can come and actually buy it. Because remember before, they would actually start to like have their own. It's like if you're farmers, you farm your own land, you keep to yourself, you don't sell it to anybody else. Maybe you might barter and trade, but the government itself had nothing to do anything with, right? And so they were just trying to find ways to make it a little bit more, I guess, friendly to everybody. But at the same time, who's winning on this one? Yeah, Pharaoh is, yeah, exactly. So that's pretty much everything on that one. So let's go back and revisit what all chapter 41 is, right? So main things, right? Joseph's helping with the dream led him to Pharaoh and his dream, right? That's how pretty much Pharaoh found out. Pharaoh's dream was good, had the good years, the good 7 years, and the bad 7 years, right? We talked about last time. But that's also what imagery? The Fat cows, skinny cows. Yeah. So the next thing is Joseph was exalted to second in command to help Egypt, right? So right away he was given the chariot, the ring, the gold necklace, everything cleaned up, linens. And so he was elevated from being in prison to now being up there within those 13 years. So like I said, given the ring. So next thing, Joseph had not forgotten about his God, and he named his sons in remembrance of him. So what were those two things? What was the first kid? What was the... No, not the name, but what was the what would he give him as far as what was the name of the kid's name or the reference? Huh?
The first one was like him being thankful to God for helping him forget all the troubles he went through. Like.
Yep. That's. And then what was the second one? Oh, Matthew got it, or you just passed it over? Oh, what was it, Matthew? What's that? Peace of the land? Fruitful. There you go. Yep. So that's what the next one was, okay? And then what else? I mean, so we're almost there to as far as the end of chapter 41. The last couple things is Joseph, the main story, right, the whole chapter 41 is that he helped store all the grain as far as what they got, right, for the 7 years to come from the famine. So the abundance was actually so great that was his whole thing, right? The reason why he was in Egypt, the reason why he was sold was to help them pretty much stay alive, right? So that's all chapter 41. We'll do chapter 42 next. And it's going to be even more interesting. Because you guys just think it's just going to be right to the family and that's it, but there's still more in between. So if you guys want to read so you get ahead so that way you can start questioning me or Vanessa.
Bring your notes.
Yeah.
Can I interview you?